For 8 months, I paid my sister's rent. $29,300. Not because I wanted to, because in my family, silence isn't kindness, it's permission. And I'd been silent for far too long. Every month it was the same routine. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. A text from Mom wrapped in concern but tied with guilt. You know how hard things are for Anna. The kids need stability. Then the second message. Always softer. Always deadlier. You've always been the lucky one, Emily. Be grateful you can help. And I believed her. Believed that carrying everyone else's weight was what good daughters did. Believed that saying no meant I was selfish. Believed that my silence kept the family whole. Tonight, that silence was about to break. Mom's 62nd birthday had always been a performance, not a celebration. The same antique china, the golden table runner, the roast chicken she spent hours pretending she made from scratch. Every detail whispered, "Look how perfect we are." The guests were cast members in a well-rehearsed play. Uncle Greg, booming about Colorado real estate like scripture. Grandpa Will, silent as ever, watching everything. Cousin Derek scrolling on his phone, pretending to be half present. And Anna, my older sister, glowing like she owned the night. She'd perfected that queen at the table posture, the kind that let everyone forget she hadn't paid her rent in nearly a year. I arrived with a polite smile and a bottle of Merlot. The kind of smile that said I'm fine, even though I was running on quiet resentment. The kind of smile you wear when you know the script by heart. The dining room smelled like lemon candles and cooked expectations. As dinner began, the conversation circled around Anna's latest business venture. Another startup. Another revolutionary idea. This one combined meal delivery with some mindfulness app. Everyone nodded along like it was genius. I didn't say a word. Then came the line. Delivered like a joke but sharpened like a knife. Some people, Anna said, swirling her wine, just have to feel needed, even when they're clearly not. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The wall clock ticked like a drum. Uncle Greg stopped mid-chew. Even Derek looked up from his phone. For years, that kind of jab would have rolled off me. I'd swallow it like everything else. But tonight, something inside me clicked, not snapped. Clicked, like a lock turning open. Sometimes endings don't arrive like storms. Sometimes they arrive like silence finally standing up. I raised my glass. My voice was calm, steady. Good news then, I'm not. I took out my phone, opened my banking app, scrolled to the recurring payment labeled Family Rent, Anna, and pressed freeze. The tiny click of that digital button was louder than any scream. Anna blinked, confused. Mom gave that high-pitched fake laugh she always used when control slipped. "You're not actually doing that," she whispered, half daring me. I looked at Anna, not Mom. "You've got until the end of the month. After that, you're on your own." Anna's husband shifted beside her. She went pale under the table's golden light. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious," I said evenly. "And your startup? I'm out. No more funding bad ideas disguised as passion." The silence stretched. Thick, uncomfortable, real. Mom's voice cracked first. "You're saying this on my birthday?" "Would you rather I lied on your birthday?" I asked. "Pretended everything's fine while I foot your bills and get called selfish for finally stopping?" Her eyes glistened, but not with pain. Control slipping. "You're humiliating your family," she hissed. "No," I said softly. "You've been humiliating me for years. I'm just done pretending it's love." For a long breath, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then a gravelly voice broke the air. "Grandpa Will." It was overdue. The weight of his words hung in the room like smoke. Anna's mouth opened, then closed. Mom stared at me, stunned that her script had gone off book. Uncle Greg exhaled through his nose like he'd waited years to hear it. I placed my napkin on the table, pushed my chair back, and stood. My hands weren't shaking. My heartbeat was steady. That surprised me. "Happy birthday, Mom," I said. I walked out of that dining room, past the glittering photos of family vacations I'd paid for, past the hallway where I used to apologize after every argument. The air outside smelled like jasmine and night. Behind me, I heard Mom's voice through the cracked window, muffled, angry. How could she do this to us? For years, I believed that paying for their comfort was love, that being quiet was noble, that holding everything together made me good. But that night, with a single click, I finally understood something. Silence isn't love, it's permission, and I wasn't giving it anymore. I walked to my car. No tears, no shaking hands, just the sharp clarity of a chain finally breaking. This was the night everything changed. The night the good daughter stopped playing her part. The night I stopped being the family's safety net. And none of them, especially not my sister, saw it coming. By the next morning, my phone looked like a battlefield, lit with missed calls and unread messages that all carried the same echoing accusation in different disguises. 6 from Mom, 3 from Anna, 1 from her husband. All of them layered with guilt and panic, as if silence itself had betrayed them. I made my coffee in the quiet, steam curling like smoke from a newly drawn line, and sat on the edge of my bed, reading through each message without letting any of it pull me back into the cage I'd just stepped out of. Mom's text came first, sharp as always when dressed as love. "This isn't like you, Emily. You're hurting your sister's children. Think about the kids." Then Anna's husband followed. "We've always appreciated your help. Don't make this ugly. You're family." That word, family, always their sharpest weapon. I didn't respond. I let the silence breathe. For once, it wasn't mine to fill. By noon, guilt shifted into fury. Mom's voice trembled when she called, the sound of control cracking around the edges. "Emily, what are you doing to this family? You're turning your back on your own blood." Her anger didn't pierce me like it used to. "No," I said calmly, stirring the sugar into my coffee. "I'm just ending something that never should have started. I never agreed to support 3 adults indefinitely." Her tone hardened instantly like metal snapping shut. "They're not just adults, they have children." "And I'm not their mother," I said, and that stunned her into silence for a heartbeat before the rant returned, sharper this time, dripping with everything she thought would bend me. She called me cold, accused me of arrogance, said I'd let money make me heartless. I listened to every word with the detached quiet of someone who's already made the decision. When she finally ran out of breath, I said nothing more. There was a click. She hung up first. That night, my apartment felt too still, like the calm after a storm that had taken years to build. I lay in bed and replayed every look at that dinner table. Anna's smirk, Mom's stare, the sound of that button freezing the transfer. They were probably sitting together now, rewriting the script as they always did, turning me into the villain. But something was different this time. I wasn't playing the role, and villains don't answer when the curtain falls. 3 days passed before anyone else broke the silence. Then came Uncle Greg's name on my screen. He never called unless something was serious. "I just wanted you to know," he said, voice low. "You did the right thing." The words caught me off guard. "Really? Because it doesn't feel like it." He exhaled slowly, like someone who'd been waiting a long time to say it. "Someone had to draw the line, Emily. It's been years of this. Everyone's just been too polite to say it out loud." My throat felt tight, not from regret, but from the quiet relief of being seen. "After you left the dinner," he added, "your grandfather said something that shut the whole table up." I held my breath. "What?" "He said it was overdue. Then he stood up and left." I closed my eyes. Grandpa Will, the man who never took sides, who could silence an entire room with one slow sentence, had stood with me. That meant more than any apology ever could. When the call ended, the kitchen felt different. Not warm, not cold, just mine. The next morning, a new message came from Mom. Just one line. "You've made your point. Now stop." I stared at it for a long time. She didn't mean stop the fighting. She meant start paying again. Pretend nothing had happened. Pretend the system still worked. Me as the quiet donor, Anna as the helpless victim, Mom as the benevolent mediator. I locked my phone and set it face down on the counter. No reply, no explanation. Just silence. Days stretched into a new kind of quiet. No group chat spam, no guilt-tripping voicemails, no last-minute emergencies. I expected relief, but what I felt instead was an ache. Not regret, just the raw space where obligation used to live. On Sunday, I drove past Mom's house. The curtains were drawn, porch light still broken. I could imagine her inside, pacing, waiting for me to come crawling back, like I always did. But I didn't stop. I kept driving. By the first of the month, the rent payment that used to bleed out of my account was gone. At 8:17 a.m., the first text came in from Anna. "Hey, can we talk?" I didn't answer. 20 minutes later, another. "You're not really doing this, right? You just needed to make a point." Still nothing. At noon, Mom called again, voice colder than before. "You embarrassed me in front of my family, humiliated your sister, and ruined my birthday. Now undo it." "There's nothing to undo," I said softly. "I'm not responsible for their rent." Her voice sharpened, slicing through the line. "You always think you're better than us. You think your career makes you untouchable. But this arrogance will come back to you." I ended the call. I didn't wait for her to finish. The next few days became a loop of pleading messages and sharp edges. Anna's husband tried first. "We're short this month. Just this once. We'll figure it out next time." Then, 5 minutes later, "You're hurting the kids. You know they don't deserve this." Their guilt used to work on me like gravity. Now it bounced off like rain on stone. I didn't respond. Not to him, not to Mom, not to Anna. The silence they left behind wasn't easy. It was heavy, pressing against my chest in the quiet hours. But it was mine. It wasn't a leash anymore. It was space. Real, raw, terrifying space. 4 days later, I walked into my favorite cafe, the one I'd been going to for years on weekends, the one they'd never bothered to visit. And there she was, Lisa, Anna's husband's wife, sitting in the corner pretending not to wait for me. Her expression was a mixture of guilt and accusation, polished like a weapon. "Oh, Emily, what a surprise." "Sure," I said flatly. 40-minute drive for a coincidence. She bit her lip, the performance crumbling. "We need help. The kids—" "Stop," I interrupted, calm but firm. "You don't get to insult me in your messages all week and then beg for help over coffee." "You can afford it," she snapped. "You make more than all of us combined." I leaned forward just slightly. "You're right," I said evenly. "I can afford a lot of things, just not this." Her voice rose, shaking. "You're punishing us." "No," I said slowly. "I'm just giving you what you said you wanted. Independence." Her eyes filled with tears she wanted me to see. When she realized I wouldn't bend, she grabbed her purse, hissed, "Karma always comes back, Emily," and stormed out. I stayed, ordered my drink. And for the first time in years, my coffee didn't taste like guilt. 3 weeks slipped by like water, slow and quiet, carrying the echoes of a house I no longer propped up. No more midnight calls from Mom. No more carefully worded requests disguised as family emergencies. No more texts from Anna pretending she was too proud to ask, only to ask anyway. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It had a pulse. It belonged to me. It was strange how peace didn't roar when it arrived. It just walked in softly, sat down, and waited for me to notice it. I spent my mornings making breakfast without guilt, reading in the quiet, taking long walks in the kind of stillness that used to feel foreign to me. There was no rent reminder hovering over my head like a shadow, no invisible obligation pressing against my chest. On the 20th day, the first real crack appeared. Mom showed up unannounced. She never did that, not without calling, not without making a scene first. I opened the door to find her standing there in a heavy coat, clutching her purse like armor, wearing that sharp expression that had raised me. "We need to talk," she said, as if it were an order, not a request. "Then talk," I replied, stepping aside without inviting her in further than the doorway. She scanned the apartment slowly, like she was looking for signs of weakness, like she expected to find proof that cutting them off had somehow broken me. Instead, she found sunlight, clean counters, quiet. It seemed to unnerve her. She sat at the edge of my couch like a queen on a borrowed throne, trying to rearrange the narrative. "Your sister's struggling," she began, voice coated in false sweetness. "The kids don't understand why their aunt turned her back on them." I folded my arms, letting her words float between us like smoke. "I didn't turn my back on anyone. I just stopped being your solution for everything." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You've always been the one who kept this family together. You're better than this, Emily. This isn't you." I let out a soft laugh that wasn't funny. "No, Mom. This is exactly me. You just never liked that version." The mask slipped, just slightly. "Your grandfather's not getting any younger," she snapped. "Do you really want him to see the family fall apart because of your pride?" "My pride," I repeated quietly. "Or your control?" Her breath caught. For once, she didn't have a sharp response ready. The silence between us stretched. This was the moment, the one she always counted on me to cave. But I didn't. "Anna's behind on rent," she finally said. Softer now, desperate beneath the steel. "They can't keep the place without you." "Then they shouldn't have taken a place they couldn't afford," I replied. "Actions have consequences, Mom. For all of us." Her hand trembled slightly on her purse strap. She wasn't used to losing footing in a conversation with me. "They're family," she whispered, like it was a trump card. "Exactly," I said calmly. "And family doesn't build their lives on someone else's back." That broke something in her. Not loudly, quietly, like glass cracking under weight it had held too long. She stood abruptly, eyes glistening but fierce. "You'll regret this," she said. But her voice didn't sound as sure as it used to. She walked out without slamming the door, which was more telling than any threat she could have thrown at me. After she left, I sat in the quiet for a long time, my hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. My heart wasn't pounding. I wasn't shaking. The confrontation that once would have left me spiraling felt steady. There was something dangerous about that kind of calm. It meant the old hooks they used to reel me back in no longer reached. A few days later, Uncle Greg called again. His voice was a mix of frustration and admiration, like someone watching a fire they didn't start but always hoped to see burn. "Your mom's furious," he said bluntly. "She thinks you've lost your mind." "She always does when she stops getting what she wants," I replied dryly. He chuckled low. "Yeah, but you should know something else. Anna's blaming you for everything. Says you left them with nothing." "I left them with their own lives," I said. "They just don't like how heavy it feels to carry them." Uncle Greg didn't argue. Instead, his voice softened. "For what it's worth, Will's proud of you." That pulled something in my chest. "Grandpa?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, and I quote, "The girl finally stopped digging wells for people who keep throwing stones in." A laugh escaped me, low and unguarded. That sounded exactly like him. He'd never raised his voice, never interfered, but when he spoke, people listened. And now he was on my side. The next week was quiet again, but it wasn't the fragile kind of quiet I used to fear. It was steady, heavy in the best way. I started working late in my studio, rediscovering the rhythm of my own life. I bought fresh flowers without guilt, cooked without keeping one ear tuned for someone else's crisis. At night, I sat by the window, looking at the city's pulse below, and realized something almost terrifying in its simplicity. They needed me more than I ever needed them. Anna tried one last time, an email this time, long, dramatic, dripping with half-truths and sentimental traps. She talked about childhood, about loyalty, about how family doesn't walk away. She ended with the line she thought would undo me. One day, you'll be alone, and no one will be there. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop without replying. Silence was once their weapon against me. Now it was mine. The storm didn't end with a bang. It ended with quiet footsteps, fading voices, and a house that no longer echoed with their demands. By the time the 4th month came around, the group chat had dissolved into nothing but Mum's occasional family updates that read more like passive-aggressive bulletins than real conversation. Anna hadn't reached out again. Her husband had stopped texting after his last guilt trip fell flat. Even Mom, who had built her entire identity around holding the family strings, started to sound tired. Not broken, just uncertain. They had spent years relying on me to fix everything, to absorb every blow, to fund every illusion. And now, for the first time, they were learning to live without me. It wasn't victory that filled my mornings. It was something quieter, steadier. I'd wake up, brew my coffee, sit on the balcony, and feel the air moving through a life that was finally mine. No pending payments, no simmering guilt, no calendar blocked by their chaos, just silence that didn't hurt anymore. A silence I'd earned. I didn't check my phone as often. I didn't flinch when it buzzed. When I saw their names, it didn't pull at me the way it used to. It was like standing on a dock watching a ship sail away, not with regret, but with relief. Then one afternoon, out of nowhere, Mom called. Her voice wasn't sharp this time. No edges, just tired. "I saw your sister last week," she said softly. I didn't reply. She sighed into the line. "They're managing." I could almost hear the weight in that single word. Managing. It meant they didn't collapse without me. They adjusted. They figured it out. It wasn't glamorous, but it was survival. "She's working nights now, and he's picked up extra shifts," she continued. "They're figuring it out. But she's angry with you." I let out a quiet breath. "She's allowed to be," I said. "But that doesn't make me wrong." There was a long pause. The kind Mom never used to allow in a conversation, because silence gave away power. "I don't agree with how you did it," she admitted. "But I can't say it didn't need to happen." That stunned me more than any screaming ever could. For the first time in years, she wasn't trying to control the story. She was just telling the truth. I pressed the mug against my chest and let her words settle. "I was so sure you'd come back," she added softly. "You always came back." "I know," I said, "but not this time." The days after that call felt different. Not cleaner, not tied up with a bow. Just real. I saw a version of my mother I hadn't seen since I was a kid, before expectations wrapped themselves around love like barbed wire. She still didn't apologize, neither did Anna. But for the first time, they stopped pretending I owed them something just to keep the peace. And maybe that was enough. A few weeks later, on a crisp Sunday morning, I walked past the old neighborhood. The house I grew up in sat like a museum of everything we used to pretend was unbreakable. The porch needed painting. The curtains were still the same. And yet, it didn't hurt to look at it anymore. It was just a house. Not an anchor. Not a cage. Just walls and windows. I didn't stop. I kept walking. 2 days after, Anna sent a single text. No essays. No emotional traps. Just, "I paid the rent today. First time without help. Didn't die." I stared at it for a long time. Not because it was sentimental, but because it wasn't. It was real. A quiet surrender to reality. I typed nothing back. Not because I didn't care, because she didn't need a savior anymore. And I didn't need to be one. Mom invited me to dinner the next weekend. Not the grand over-scripted kind she used to throw, just dinner. "No speeches," she promised. I almost didn't go. But something in her voice wasn't the same. So I said yes. When I walked into her kitchen, the golden table runner was gone. No fancy china, no stage. Just a pot of stew simmering and two mismatched plates on the counter. She handed me a spoon like it was a peace offering. "You look good," she said softly. "So do you," I replied, surprising even myself with the honesty of it. We ate slowly. No accusations, no guilt, no performance. Just two people with a history too complicated to summarize, sharing a quiet meal that didn't demand anything from either of us. I didn't know if this was forgiveness. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe it was just the moment where everything stopped being war. Weeks bled into months. Life didn't become perfect. It became mine. I learned how to say no without rehearsing it first. Learned how to love without bleeding for it. Learned that sometimes the people who depended on your silence the most were the ones who needed to hear it end. On the first night of winter, I sat on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city hum beneath a soft frost. The old me, the one who thought love meant giving until nothing was left, felt like a ghost I could finally let rest. I whispered into the cold air, not for anyone else to hear but me. "My name is Emily, and I choose me now." The wind carried it away, but the words stayed, solid, final, mine.